Today, we're going to learn how to do 3 different types of techniques that will help us get pure cultures if we're starting from a mixture of bacteria. So, first we have a tube with a mixture of bacteria. Here's our tube with our mixture. And remember, anytime you use a tube of bacteria, you always have to vortex it or mix it vigorously by flicking it back and forth. The first type of culture we're going to do is called a pour plate. Now, to do a pour plate, you need molten agar, which is melted. You can either get that from out of the autoclave, or you can boil it in water, as we have done here. You see this tube of water. It had been boiling. I've let it cool. And it is approximately 55 degrees Celsius. You can tell that because I can hold it in my hand. It feels warm, but not boiling hot. So that is the temperature that you want to use. The cap is only on here loosely to let any steam out. And you can see that the tube is liquid. So I'm going to set that aside until it's ready to be used. The first thing I want to do is label my plate. This is an empty Petri dish, and I'm going to label it around the edge on the bottom with my name, the lab section, the temperature. This is going to be incubated at 37 degrees Celsius. This is nutrient broth, the date, and this is a pour plate. And that's going to be from a mixture of bacteria. So I'm going to call it mixture. Now that my plate is labeled, I'm going to use a sterile pipette and a special bulb. This is a microbiology pipette bulb. It has filters in it to prevent bacteria from getting up into the bulb. Notice that it has a lever here. When you push the lever up, bacteria will come up into the pipette. And when you push the lever down, bacteria will then go down into the pipette. And this bulb gets rid of the final drop. Now, this pipette bulb won't do anything if this rubber top is nice and inflated. The first thing you have to do is squeeze it and make it look like that. Now it's ready to draw a suction. I'm going to take my sterile pipette and I'm going to peel down the paper part way. Notice that there's cotton at the tip here, and these big lines. You'd never want to take the liquid up into the cotton because that will clog the pipette. I'm going to take this, I'm going to insert it firmly into the pipette, and then withdraw the paper, and that goes into regular garbage. Now that I have my pipette in my bulb, I'm going to take my tube of bacteria that has been mixed, and I'm going to place my pipette into the mixture, and I'm going to make sure that you do this without any bubbles. If you can see, I'm going to slowly draw this up, and you can see it rising into the test tube. So now I have it at 0.6 milliliters. I want 0.1 milliliters. So I'm going to take this recap my tube, remove the lid of my plate, and I'm going to slowly put 0.1 milliliters into the bottom of my Petri dish. Normally, you will not return what's left in here to your sample, but because this is a sterile pipette and it's only touched a sterile plate, everything here is still sterile. It hasn't been contaminated with anything other than the sample. So I'm going to return my sample to the tube. The pipette comes out and goes into the biohazard. And I'm going to recap my tube. Now, I'm going to take my culture and I'm going to pour it into this plate. I'm going to pour the entire thing in. And then I'm going to gently swirl it so that the bacteria is mixed. Notice I'm being gentle. I don't want the agar to splash up on the sides. Then I'm going to take that, let it solidify, and we'll incubate it at 37 degrees Celsius. Another method we will use is called the spread plate. And so for the spread plate, what you need is a plate of nutrient agar and our tube of broth. Remember, every time you use a tube of broth, you either need to vortex it or you need to mix it by hand. So we're going to mix it by hand to make sure it's well agitated. For this, we're going to use our pipette again and use the bulb and the sterile pipette, which we see here, to take 0.1 or 1/10 of a milliliter. So I'm going to peel down part way, going to insert it into the bulb, and I'm going to withdraw the paper. Remember, I don't want to touch this to anything to keep it sterile. Now I'm going to take my tube with the bacteria and I'm going to pipette 1/10 of a milliliter. Using my pinky to remove the cap, I'm going to insert the pipette, press up on the lever, and you can see I have liquid in the pipette. I'm going to recap my tube. And I'm going to use my pipette to deposit 0.1 or 1/10 of a milliliter onto the surface. Now again, because the only thing this has touched has been the culture, I am able to return it to the tube. Recap the tube, and I'm going to dispose of the pipette. Now, this is called a cell spreader. This one is sterile. They're often made of glass, but this one is disposable and plastic. So I'm going to take off the lid, using the lid as a shield, and I'm going to just spread the culture all around the plate using my cell spreader. This then goes into biohazard. Normally, this is best done with cultures that are dilute. Our culture was very concentrated, so when we develop this in the incubator and let it grow, we may have bacteria all over the plate. what we're going to do next is label the plate. As always, on the bottom of the plate, the name, lab section, the date. This is Nutrien Agar spread plate. And this is a mixture. And we're going to be growing it at 37 degrees Celsius. So we'll go ahead and put that in the incubator. The last method we're using is the most commonly used method. It's called a streak plate. To use a streak plate, to make one correctly, you need a plate of agar. We're using Nutrien Agar. So we're going to go ahead and label that now. The name, your lab section, the date, the type of media, this is Nutrien Agar, the temperature, this will be 37 degrees Celsius, and this is a streak plate. From a mixture of bacteria. We're going to take our mixture, and because it's a liquid, we're going to either vortex it or mix it by hand. Now we're going to take our loop that has already been sterilized because we've used it before. We're going to take our loop, remove the cap with our pinky, move the tube to pick up a loop full of culture, and recap the tube. Now we're going to take our tube, or our loop, and spread it gently on one part of the plate, back and forth. Notice I'm doing it gently and not digging into the agar, using the lid as a shield. I'm now going to take my loop and flame it to kill any bacteria that are on it. As you know, you insert it until it becomes red hot. And then we're going to let it cool for a little bit. If you're not sure if it's cool, one of the tips you can do is touch it to a corner of the plate, and that will cool it. If you hear tss, then you know your loop is not cool yet. If I tilt the plate, I can see where my set of streaks are. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the plate a little bit and use my loop to drag the bacteria that's already on the plate into a new section. So I'm spreading out the bacteria that are already on the plate. And now I'm going to go ahead and flame my loop again. So I'm going to insert it for a couple of seconds until it gets red hot. And I'm going to let it cool a little bit. I'll go over to my plate. Going to rotate the plate, touch the loop to a corner to make sure it's cool, or a side, I guess a plate doesn't have corners. And I'm going to take the bacteria that I already have on the plate and spread it into a new region. Again, so what's going to happen is this is becoming more and more spread out. Again, I'll take my loop and flame it. I'll place it in the back of the incinerator. Until it becomes red hot. Withdraw it and let it cool. Now I'll return to the plate. Remember that I'm not putting any more bacteria on the plate. I'm just using what's already on there. I will rotate the plate, take my loop, spread the bacteria into a new section of the plate. I want to be careful not to scrape the agar, not to dig into it, and not to touch my original set of streaks. I'll flame the loop again, insert until it's red hot, withdraw, and let cool. And now I'll do one final set of streaks into the middle. Using my lid as a shield, I'll take my last set of streaks, drag it into the middle, and do one final flaming of the loop. Final time, insert until red hot, withdraw, and let cool. And I'm going to go and turn off the back of the incinerator. Now what's going to happen with our plate when we incubate it, this initial set of streaks is the one that has the most bacteria. So that will be just solid growth. But as we go around, because we've drug it out, this section here will have a little bit less bacteria than the first one. And this one will even have less because we've taken the bacteria already on a plate and pulled it in this direction. And the same you'll see here. As we go in this direction, there'll be even less bacteria, and then in the middle, we'll have the fewest amount. So you should see heavy growth, lighter growth, and eventually we should wind up with pure colonies. We'll incubate all of those at 37 degrees, and we'll come back next lab and see the results. Thanks for watching.